Chapter 8. The Mortis Sisters. Establishing an exact time of death remains the holy grail of forensic science. It is a critical step in assessing the alibi of any given suspect and establishing a peri-mortem timeline. Yet even today, the best methods produce estimates with disturbingly broad confidence intervals. The plus or minus wiggle room scientists add to make the results statistically valid. Early critics of time of death estimation argued that the results were so flawed and wide-ranging as to allow for the farcical possibility of the person still being alive, and that all results must be seen as a matter of guesstimation rather than determination. Keeping in mind that such estimates remain more art than science, it is not surprising the methods themselves have changed little in the past century. The techniques available in 1896, as today, rely on three key elements: temperature, lividity, and muscle rigidity. In scientific circles, these elements are known as the triad, although they are often jokingly referred to as the Mortis sisters: algor mortis, livor mortis, and rigor mortis. The pretty, popular sister is algor mortis, the predictable cooling of the body after death, which ranks among the oldest of forensic methods and was widely used in death investigations as early as 1850. Like all town tramps, algor is simple and easy. The corpse cools at a rate of 2 degrees Fahrenheit per hour, slowing to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour at 12 hours, until the body reaches ambient temperature. A murder victim with a normal body temperature, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, reaches typical room temperature, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, within 14 hours after death. Lividity, or livor mortis, is the ugly stepsister. Lividity is the purplish discoloration that manifests as blood pools in patterns dictated by gravity. Accordingly, livor develops in the dependent parts of the body, for example, on the back of a decedent prone on the floor. Livor arrives about 20 minutes after death and never leaves. It is a progressive process, with the purple staining becoming more marked as time goes on, and after 8 to 12 hours, lividity becomes fixed or permanent as the blood congeals. Livor may be unsightly, but she is a godsend at crime scenes, telegraphing to investigators that a body has been moved after death, as the staining faithfully records the original position of the remains. If algor is cheap and livor is hard on the eyes, the middle sister, rigor mortis, is an inflexible harridan. After death, the muscles of the body are flaccid and easily moved. That flabbiness is soon replaced by increasing rigidity, known as rigor. With time, rigor becomes stronger, eventually reaching a maximum during which the body becomes stiff as a plank. Rigor develops in all muscles at the same rate, however, because of their relative masses. Smaller muscles, such as those of the face, display rigor first, followed by larger muscle groups such as the thighs. Once rigor reaches its peak, it recedes in the same order it first appeared, releasing the smaller muscles first before relinquishing its grip on the major muscle masses, usually 24 hours after death. Rigor's lone lingering effect is a stiffness of the major joints, which freeze at the peak of rigor's powers. Like her sisters, rigor is progressive, reaching her full expression in temperate environments 12 to 18 hours after death. The Mortis girls collectively reveal that 12 hours post-mortem is a major benchmark, a period in which all three sisters are at their best and most developed. This brief primer in determining the time of death paves the way for evaluating the testimony of the inquest's next witness, Dr. Robert Ellison, the physician who performed Annie Kempton's autopsy. As the afternoon session of the inquest's second day gathered steam, Dr. Ellison, a physician respected and trusted by all in attendance, reluctantly took the stand. Ellison had the unenviable task of relating the mechanics of how Annie died. He had cared for the victim since her birth, and the doctor's face bore the ravages of what he had just done and what he must now do. Like most trained physicians, he found solace in clinical detachment. He also knew his audience, simultaneously translating his medical jargon into lay terms all could comprehend. Ellison began by describing Annie's injuries. He found 5 distinct wounds to the head, 2 blunt force defects to the scalp and 3 incised wounds to the throat. The blunt injuries had torn the skin clear through to the bone. In his expert opinion, the blows to the head had stunned her, but it was the deep cuts to the throat that killed her. For the sake of thoroughness, Ellison then catalogued the other bruises and abrasions to Annie's body, each a silent testament to her last desperate minutes. Ellison, in deference to the family, avoided any gratuitously graphic details. Then came the question few dared ask aloud: had Annie been sexually assaulted? The St. John Daily Record had reported as much that very morning. Ellison announced, to the audible relief of those assembled, that Annie had retained her virtue throughout her ordeal. Relief soon turned to chagrin as the discussion took an anatomical turn. Women blushed crimson and men looked askance as the doctor stated matter-of-factly that he found the vagina all right. If the unknown assailant's intent was to rape her, he had not succeeded. Not once did Ellison mention Peter Wheeler by name. After documenting the fatal wounds and addressing the question of sexual assault, Ellison made a bold pronouncement. He had estimated Annie's time of death. Based on his assessment of the triad, temperature, lividity, and rigor, Ellison stated with confidence that when he examined the body at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, January 28, Annie had been dead approximately 13 hours. To err on the side of caution, Ellison fixed her time of death as sometime between midnight and 4 a.m. on Tuesday the 28th. The doctor's estimate was consistent with evidence at the scene, specifically Annie's state of dress and the condition of her bed. The estimate also ruled out another troubling possibility. Given the girl's body temperature and the degree of rigor in liver development, the doctor was positive the murder could not have occurred after 8 a.m. on Tuesday, excluding any chance that Wheeler had committed the act when he arrived that morning to buy milk for his landlady. The crime, Ellison concluded, must have occurred in the early morning hours of the 28th, of that he was certain. The body does not lie, Ellison told the awestruck crowd, although at least one detective in the crowd paid the good doctor precious little heed.